And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. This is a review of Scythe, the Rise of Fenris, but this is a spoiler-laden review. I want to be very clear about that, heads up. So just to clarify how this works, Scythe, the Rise of Fenris is the third expansion for Scythe. This has a campaign setting inside. If you're curious about my thoughts about the game overall, without any spoilers other than the talking about the campaign and going through and what it was like to go through that, I have a review that explains that. Here I'm going to take a look at some of the modules that were included in this, because it is possible, if you get this, and I think some people are going to be like that, you're going to want to just get this, look, open it, forget about the campaign, open up the stuff, and just go through the modules. If that's the case, then this is the review for you to watch. So in this review, I'm going to be taking a look at the different modules that come with this game and my thoughts on each of them. So spoilers! Spoilers! Alright, spoilers over, I suppose. So the biggest thing about this game here that are in it, we're still in spoiler territory, it's going to be that way for the rest of the video. Alright, the biggest thing here is it includes 2 new factions. It also includes some other modules that can be used. They use them throughout the campaign. There's smaller modules and things, but man, I'm telling you, I want to add all these modules, not all of them necessarily to every game, but first let's take a look at the 2 new factions. The first faction here is the Vesna faction. So we have Vesna and Voltan, who looks sort of like a robotic dog or something, which is pretty cool. So it's a light blue faction. Now this faction is not on the board, so you have this token here, which you can just put on any faction thing that's on the board. So maybe I want to put it, here. I just have to pick one that's not being in use. Now Vesna is the variety faction. By the way, this game comes with her own combat wheel. There's 2 ways in which she has variety. First, you have a bunch of these tiles here. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to draw 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're going to be revealing your mech abilities. You'll notice that there's River Walk, which, by the way, lets you move to or from anything that has a structure, which is really neat, and Speed, +1. But you're going to draw 6 of these, and then you're going to go through these and pick 2 to 4 of them to place them. So maybe I'm like, ooh, I want Seaworthy. I can move to from lakes and retreat onto lakes. That seems like a good one. I'll put that one here. Let's see, what else? Before combat, when I'm defending, get +2. I don't know if I want that one. I can, let's see, there's another moving to lakes. Let's see. Before combat, when you're attacking, the opponent gets -2. Ooh, I feel like attacking in this game. And you know what? I'm going to give up my extra 1 movement so that I can retreat. No, I don't want to do that one. Let's see. Here, before combat, I can play 2 power to play. Oh, that's great. I'll put that one here and put on speed. And so because there's so many of these, and you don't know what you're going to get from game to game, right? So you can't have like some ultimate power combination. You're basically going to be setting up the powers of your mech. This is awesome. This is something I love because I love variety in games. That's not the only variety. Vesna also, her special ability is that she starts with 3 factory cards. So you will draw 3 factory cards and put them here. And we all know factory cards are great. Now the disadvantage that Vesna has is when you use a factory card, it goes away. Even if she goes to the middle and gets a factory card, that's going to go away too. So these are one-time use. So you can't say, ooh, I got this. This is going to be something I can use over and over again. Still, it gives Vesna a couple things. First of all, it gives her some initial really fast movement because she's going to be able to use the movement on these cards if she wants to. It also gives her a chance to kind of buff out and get a whole bunch of stuff quickly, at cost, of course, but it gives her a great starting advantage. Now, that advantage does not last over the course of the game. It's not an insurmountable one. I've definitely lost with using Vesna for sure, but for me, this is my favorite faction in the game now because I love the variety that having these and these cards does. It may not be the most powerful, but it just has a really cool feel to it. I also like the color. The only disadvantage I would say about this, and this is the same way for the other faction, is for some reason the workers are a little thinner than they are in the original game, so they don't fit in here as tight. And if you're not careful, you'll think, hey, there's one missing here, when in reality they're supposed to be spread out. But that's my only complaint. Other than that, awesome. Fenris is the other faction in the game. They also come with their own starting spot that they'll cover up on the board. And they're the evil faction. Now, the crazy thing about Fenris is just how humongous their mechs are. In fact, if I compare their mechs to Vesna's mechs here, you'll see that they are like twice the size. That's crazy. Now, they're not as powerful as that, although they can be. So their mech powers, which are set, they have leap, which is you can jump, skip an adjacent territory in a straight line, which sounds amazing. And it is. However, it has some disadvantages too, because sometimes you don't want to jump in a straight line. You just want to cross the river. They have Horrify, where you can give an influence token when you make someone retreat. We'll talk about that in a second. Death Ray, where you can play as many cards as you want as long as they're all the same number. And Fanatical, which lets you move to a non-adjacent territory that has an influence token. So I guess I should talk about influence tokens, because that's the special ability that Fenris has. They're going to start with a whole pile of these tokens, giving them a bunch of negative points at the beginning of the game, because these tokens are negative points. When you move your leader, you can drop one of these tokens off in the area where that leader is, and you can also drop one off in one empty regular land area on the board. If someone else moves into one of these, they take it. It's worth -1 point. So there's that, right? Now, this is tough on Fenris because it means they're going to have to do the move action a lot to get rid of all these tokens. Secondly, like I said, you can give these tokens out by forcing someone to retreat if you have Horrify. But Fanatical, which is amazing, it basically lets you warp on the board to where one of these tokens are, but then you have to take the token back. So it gives you that opportunity at the beginning of the game. You throw this token out, you can warp on the board, get your stuff out there pretty quickly, but then you're not getting rid of these as quickly. So while Fenris comes across here with, by the way, their leader, Rasputin, that evil, I hate Rasputin, okay, that evil leader, but they're really cool looking and they're pretty powerful, and they have that neat ability, but there's also some negatives, okay, because again, it's a faction you start that actually has negative points at the beginning of the game. They actually remind me of the factions that came in the first expansion for this. They both had tokens too. So this one's like that. This is not one I would necessarily give to a new player. I should have also mentioned that both these factions come with their airships already included. So that's a nice faction. And hey, we got orange now. But yeah, this faction is evil. Now let's take a look at the Alliances module. This is the one module that I'm not completely sure about. It seems like it's okay. I have to play with it more before I can give a final opinion on it. But each faction will start with their own alliance chip here in a game. So there's one for each of the factions. And you'll notice there's coins on them, and there's also 10 on the back. And the way these work is, if you want to, at some point in the game, you can make an alliance with somebody else. You say, all right, and you switch these tokens. The token that you receive, the coin number on it is how much you get. So if I get this faction, I'm going to get 9. While this one, I only get 1. So you're going to get a certain amount of money, but you also get their special ability. So if I take this faction here, I can now choose the same action twice in a row. Here, my workers can swim across rivers and so on and so forth. You have to figure out what you want to do. If you attack the person who you have made an alliance with, then you'll turn this over and it's worth -10 at the end of the game. So if you make an alliance, you're kind of stuck with that for the rest of the game. If you are the odd person out, if you're playing a 3, 5-player game or 7-player game, and you're the last person, then you don't get anything, but you automatically get 5 coins from the supply. So this is just a way to have more permanent alliances, make it more formalized when you work with people. It seems okay. I like the idea. I mean, you gotta be careful. You don't want to give your special ability away to someone else. And because everyone is kind of hesitant in that regard to do that, it's easy to add this module to a game and then no alliances are ever made. But it's interesting for sure. Now, perhaps you're one of those people who complains that there's not enough fighting inside. Well, here you go. You now can have a war triumph track. You just slap this on, and now you can fight 4 battles. And so some of the stuff, and here, if you get 8 of the combat cards, so you can see that this one here is definitely going to be changing what's on the board. You know, here you can get your upgrades or your buildings, so that's it. And it completely gets rid of the getting all 8 of your workers on the board. So it's a new, and also getting all the way up to the top of the track in popularity isn't going to count anymore. So if you want war, this one adds it for you. Or on the flip side, if you want peace, this gets rid of the war. You can now complete 2 objectives. You'll draw an extra one at the beginning of the game, finding 3 of the different encounters on the board, getting a factory card, getting 16 resources. So that's a pretty neat thing. And then if you don't like any of that, you can simply draw from a big pile and have these come out randomly. So you can just pick each one, which will be a mix between the two. And you know what, frankly, folks, I think I like that the best. I think I like having the random ones come out. It could be all war, it could be all peace. And so these random ones are just going to be placed out here, and then you just go by whatever comes out on the board. But this is a way to change up Scythe. I promise you that the war one is definitely going to change how the game plays. But if you thought Scythe didn't have enough fighting, huzzah! And if you want the peace one, definitely you'll want to use this one. There's no war at all now. It's just basically a big Euro game if you want. Now we come to another one that I love, and that's mech mods and infrastructure mods. Now these are used in the campaign a lot, but in a regular game, and there's tons of these, I'm just showing you some of them, each player can draw 4 of these if you're going to use them, and then they get to keep 2 of them. Now if you draw duplicates, you can get rid of them. So the mech mods, that's the easier one to explain. These essentially are the same as Vesna's thing. So you can just basically take a couple of those, you draw 4 and you can place up to 2 of them on your mechs, giving yourself different special abilities on your mechs. Of course, you're giving up the ones that you already have. But that's neat. If you like variety, which I do, use these. The infrastructure ones are a little bit more interesting. What these do is they're basically give you a one-time ability to use throughout the game. So you can see here, for example, propaganda says negate up to 2 lost popularity from an action or encounter. That's really cool. You can have an encounter and it says, you lose 2 popularity to do whatever, and you're like, hey, guess what? You flip this over, no, I'm not. Or here, double your production by all your workers for 1 turn. Here, in a combat, add 2 to the combat total after cards and dials. Or here, when I do an upgrade, I can reduce the cost of 1 upgrade action to 0 oil. And there's one of these for everything. So you can do one, there's one for building a mech, one for building a building, one for enlisting, and they're free. Now what these will do is they are definitely going to speed the game up. Because if everyone gets these, you're going to be able to, probably of the 4 you draw, you are probably going to get one that lets you do something for free. So if you can get a mech really quickly or a building really fast on the board, these definitely speed the game up. I highly recommend them. I didn't think Scythe was a slow game, but they give you this kind of jump start. And while I like the mech mods a lot, and I would use them for sure, I love the infrastructure mods. If nothing else, because they give you kind of a little boost in the game, and then you get your engine going a little bit faster. So both of these mods are fantastic. Now I mentioned that there is basically a cooperative variant that's included with the game that you can play. It's called Desolation, and Desolation, a cooperative module. And so you will be using these. Some of these are going to be in there because you have to get a certain number of stars to win the game, and so there's going to be various things that you all need to work together to finish. So some of those are going to replace things on the Triumph track. You can also, and Matt Tesla's here, I'll talk about him in a second, and so you're going to pick a faction. You should probably play with Fenris, it says, if you're not, which makes sense because they look like they're big and evil, that are going to be on the board, and there's some randomness to how they roll. You're going to have to fight them and do different things, and so that's what this tile. And then there's dice. These are basically 6-sided dice, but they have that on them that will be used. You can also have Mad Tesla, who's very similar. He can just be a big bad guy in the middle that you can fight, okay, and go against him. Or you can give them to a player if you think that player needs some help. Maybe they complain their faction isn't that great. Or you can have him set up so that the first person doing 3 encounters gets him. Mad Tesla, once you get him, is essentially a character and a mech, which means he can move and discover encounters, which is pretty awesome, and he can carry guys with him and do everything in mechs do. That's pretty cool, and this is a really, really neat model that I like a lot. So this is one I don't know that I'd use all the time, because the person who gets it is definitely going to have an advantage. But if someone's new to the game, maybe you can give this to them, or maybe you just put it in the middle and have everyone go and try to fight him and get some points and things that way. So either way, I like that addition. The rulebook for this game comes and explains, first of all, how the campaign works, has some backstory, and I don't want to ruin all the different things, even if this is a bit of a thing. There's rules in the back for Desolation, but what's really nice is when you get to the very back, there's a lot of, oh, by the way, there's a lot of automata stuff in here. If you want to play solo, there's a lot in here. But there's modular rules here, and then it explains where the actual rules for it are in the book, if you want to see the comprehensive thing, where the stuff is and what box it's in, and then how it recommends that you use it. So there you go. That's pretty much the rule book, which is a great, nice spiral-bound rule book. So wowzers. I love all this. I will always use the 2 new factions. I will always use the infrastructure mods, always. Mech mods, probably. I will often use the new Triumph track stuff. The War and Peace one, I'll say, hey, do you want to use that? Or maybe you don't care. Let's draw one randomly and see how it works. Now, if I use the new Triumph track, the new War or Peace or the mixed one, I will always allow people to pick their factions after we choose that. Because it would, I mean, there's, and by the way, a lot of modules in here, there's a couple factions where they say you can't do this, or this is, this is not allowed for you. It mentions that in the thing, or take these cards out if you're playing with war, take this objective out of the deck, things like that. But it's very minor changes. But I would let people pick their factions after they saw whether we're doing war or peace, because that would definitely affect that. But other than that, man, oh man, this has more stuff, I think, than the previous 2 combined, it feels like, in here. If you are playing this for the campaign, it's fun. If you're watching this and like, nah, I wouldn't like playing through the campaign, I may have spoiled some of what's in here, but I still didn't spoil the story of the campaign, and the story is pretty fun. And you can go through and play the campaign multiple times. So this is an unbelievable expansion. Highly recommend it. Get it. Dice Tower Judgment, unbelievable.